Hello everyone, welcome to this week's art lesson. This is Miss Maral here. I hope you all are doing great, you're healthy and happy. Let's start. Today we're going to learn about object composition. We're going to talk about it first and draw a little bit. Prepare your materials. So while drawing this, I want you guys to use only glass materials, only glass objects you have at home. And this is mine, but you don't have to do the same, but at least 3 objects I want you guys to use. And while drawing this, you guys need to consider the rules of composition which you learned last week, which were overlapping, off-centering objects, rotating, and variation. So if you consider these rules, you can create any kind of object composition you want with glass objects. Okay, there we go. This is my object composition. And first of all, I want to talk about eye level. Here you see my eye level is very high, and this doesn't give a good proposition for my objects. Here as well, it's very, very low. This is exact same idea behind when you use your horizon line in the perspective drawings. Here it's the same. You need to consider your eye level to be at in a normal level. So with this composition, it's supposed to be somewhere around the neck of the bottle. Okay, let's start. So I start with drawing a frame on my paper. So this frame will tell me where my objects start and end. So this is kind of a long composition. That's why I give a little more space from right and left edges, but only a little bit space on top and bottom. I don't want my objects to stick on the edges of the paper, so I want to give them a nice little space all around. Okay, let's talk about measuring. So you guys learned about measuring while you're drawing a human body. Here, it's the same idea behind it. You use units. So there is my first unit, and I measure all of my composition, all of my objects. So there you see I have 5 units and slightly more on the top. And here now I want you guys to use this measurement and apply it on the paper. So I start with a straight line, and you can start with a random unit, decide with a random unit, and then measure it. Is it accurate? There we go. I have 3, 4. So mine is not accurate, so I need to do it slightly smaller and remeasure it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a little more on top. Perfect. So measure until you have an accurate measurement. And this line over here will be the bottom of my big green bottle, and over there is the top. Let's look back this image. Do you see where my glass starts? The end of my 3rd unit. So let's come back and measure 1, 2, 3, and the end of the 3rd unit, my glass starts. Perfect. Okay, here let's come back to this image. I want to measure my glass. So I give my glass 1 unit, and the rest of the paper is 2nd unit, and the bottle is slightly shorter. You can use this kind of measurements on your paper. So I decide my the length of my glass, and I also draw thicker the length of my bottle as well. Both of them are thicker and darker. Okay, so I will come back here and use another measurement for the width of my composition. So I used the exact same first unit I used before, and I'll use it to measure the width of my composition. So I just flip it around and use it again and again. So I have 3 of this unit on my width. So I will do the exact same on my drawing over here. I take the first unit I created and use it to measure the width. So it's slightly narrower than 3, so I cut it a little down so I know where my glass will end. Okay, now I know a lot of things about my composition, so I will erase this line over here, which was a reference to me at the beginning, but I don't need it anymore. But I need these other lines, so I want them to be thicker and more obvious so I can see my grid better. Yeah, you have here basically a grid. It will help you to draw your composition very much easier. Okay, if you have your grid now, you can go back to your composition. And here I see my bottle starts at the end of my first unit. So I can start drawing the width of my bottle because I already know the height. And also when I look at this image, I also saw the width of my glass, so I also draw the width of my glass as well, which starts at the end of my second unit. So now I know how wide my bottle is and how wide my glass is. So I also know their length. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to find their middle and draw a line from top to bottom. This will be our guide. This will help us if we struggle to draw equal the left side and the right side of our bottle and glass. So this middle line will be our reference. Okay, I start drawing my bottle. What I do first, I draw parallel lines to my middle line and also parallel to the edges of my paper. And when I look at my bottle, I also see the bottom is slightly narrow than the top, so I will draw it more narrow. So I use diagonal lines, and also I draw this oval to the bottom because it's not a rectangle, it's a round shape, so I see it as an oval. And I go ahead and draw the neck of my bottle. Try to make the right side and the left side equal. I know this is the hardest part, but maybe you selected an easier object than this, so you don't have any struggle. I'm not drawing too detailed, as you see. I'm just drawing a very light, easy to clean lines. Okay, I'm happy with my first object, which is the furthest. This is important to start with the furthest one and go closer and closer with your when you're doing your sketch. And now I can start doing my second object, which is this glass standing on the right. Okay, again, what I'm doing, I already know the length, the height of my object, and I start drawing two parallel lines. And I know also here that the bottom of my glass is slightly smaller than the top, so I create a smaller bottom, and here I am drawing the oval on the bottom of my object. So what is tricky here, you shouldn't start drawing this oval right away off this line. You need to draw another line underneath and start drawing your oval around that line, because you know that where your object starts and ends. If you draw an oval around that line, your object will be higher. Okay, my second object is also very much done. Fixing the lines until I'm happy, but still not drawing too many details. And my third object is a little bit tricky. So what you need to do if you're using this kind of object, we're basically drawing a cylinder. So I'm starting with defining the beginning and the end of my object, and I'm using a reference line for my ovals, and I always start drawing very, very lightly and press harder and harder when I'm getting more and more sure about the details. So first lines of mine maybe you can't even see, but when I'm getting more and more sure about my lines, I make them thicker and more clear. So here you need to improvise a little bit. If you have this kind of object, you need to trust your eyes and try to draw it very similar. Of course, I'm not just drawing it in a random place. I'm always looking at my object composition. This is the most important thing actually. If you're drawing something, you need to look at it as much as you can while you're drawing. And now grab your eraser and erase that fine lines you draw as references. We don't need our reference lines anymore if you're happy with your objects, with your drawings. And then I will add a little bit of details. You don't have to do that, but keep these drawings of yours. We're going to add shading next week. And yeah, this is pretty much all for this week. I want you guys to draw and still life and object composition which has at least 3 glass objects in it, and I want you to be careful about rules of the composition which you learned last week: overlapping, off-centering objects, rotating, and variation. Don't forget to consider these in your composition. And I forgot to draw here, but you shouldn't forget, like me, you need a line for your table so your objects don't float. So don't forget to draw a table behind all of your objects. And don't forget they're glass, so try to draw very, very light. Don't press too much with your pencil. Try to be very light and gentle while you're drawing. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to email me your drawings, and I see you all next week. Bye guys.